Not at the moment.
Okay, all right, well, we'll make a start then, because we've got a fairly full agenda. So welcome to tonight's full council meeting for Holme Valley Parish Council. Just to start at the beginning, we've got public question time, and I believe we've got 5 members of the public to speak to us. I think I can only see 4.
Yeah, Stephanie hasn't appeared.
Okay, we'll see if she appears shortly. So I'm going to take them broadly in alphabetical order. So we'll start with you will each get 3 minutes, basically, to which is part of the open session, which can last up to 15. So because there's 5 people expected, it's 3 minutes each, please. So we will start with Giles Cheetham, and then move on to Andy Leader, and then Noel Scanlon, and then David Sykes. So we'll work in that order, please. So first of all, if we can have Giles Cheetham, please.
Yeah, can you okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hello, my thanks for the opportunity to address the meeting. My name is Giles Cheetham and I work on public footpath matters for Kirklees Council, including footpath 60 at Woolstones. We have been contacted by various parties regarding the Parish Council's considerations. I've listened to parts of the Planning Committee discussions of the 7th of September and the 5th of October. I thank the clerk for sharing my email to the Parish Council dated the 30th of October about the current footpath diversion proposal. I would bring its contents to your attention at page 44 of the agenda papers online. Kirklees Council has objected to the draft section 247 order published by the DFT, the Department for Transport. Unless Kirklees Council withdraws its objection or the DFT abandons the diversion application, then there will have to be a public inquiry anyway. Applications for costs are generally related to unreasonable behaviour, for example, where an inquiry is unreasonably caused or extended. However, the DFT's draft diversion order is currently at an informal stage. Generally, the DFT sends the draft order consultation responses, both positive and negative, to the applicant, but these are not sent out to anyone else, including Kirklees Council, which is the highway authority. The applicant may contact those who have sent responses to the DFT. The Parish Council is not obliged today to respond to overtures, whether to withdraw its objection to the draft order or to do something else. The Parish Council is not obliged today to commit to how it may address this matter at a potential public inquiry. Like the Parish Council, Kirklees Council has objected to the current diversion proposal. The grounds for the Kirklees Council objection sent to the DFT are as stated in my email of the 30th of October. They relate generally to the negative effect of the proposed diversion on the public and on public users of the public footpath, taking appropriate consideration of the advantages of the development. In making that Kirklees objection, it is considered that objecting to an order is not unreasonable, and telling the DFT that you think an order should not proceed because you think that there is a negative impact on public use is not unreasonable either. When the matter returns to the DFT, then the government will contact the relevant parties, including objectors, and describe the way forward. If the way forward involves a public inquiry, then much greater in-depth information may be put together and sent to the DFT. If the Parish Council retains its objection to the draft order, then we would likely be open to discuss any future approach to a potential public inquiry process. As an officer of Kirklees Council, I am happy to assist the Parish Council and its members if they have any queries, whether this evening or outside of this meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Giles. Thank you for that. We've obviously got the Woolstones item later on the agenda, and I would suggest we move on to hear the other members of the public speaking to us. And clearly, you've kindly given the offer that we can contact you in your Kirklees capacity on the matter. So thank you for giving us that resume and clarity. Right, so moving on to Andy Leader next, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, great. I'm Andy Leader from Pecan Northern Footpath Society. Pecan Northern is a registered charity working for walkers in Northern England. We have over 1,200 members and we're a statutory consultee on applications to change the path network. We have objected to the section 247 order relating to Holme 60 on the grounds that it does not satisfy the relevant criteria for the making of an order under section 247. The order proposal fails the merits test when considering the relative advantages or otherwise of the development and the negative effect the order would have on public use of footpath 60. Beyond a line on a map and basic description, little information has been provided to consultees on this matter. We therefore submitted a Freedom of Information request to the Department of Transport to obtain the application and the supporting statement. From this, it appears that the Section 247 order is identical to a previous Section 257 application made by the same applicant to Kirklees Council. The Section 247 supporting statement relies on the same flawed arguments which failed in January 2020 when Kirklees Planning Subcommittee rejected the 257 application on the grounds put forward by Peak Northern and others that the proposals in essence failed the merits test. Subsequent to this, the Kirklees Strategic Planning Committee voted to object to this Section 247 order, and we support Kirklees' position. Holmfirth Footpath 60 is a well-used and popular route. It provides direct, safe and enjoyable off-road access from the valley and surrounding areas to Woolstones. A wide variety of people use the path, including Holmfirth Harriers, Ramblers groups, Holmfirth Walkers Welcome groups, and many informal groups and individuals, including walkers with children. The value of such paths has been brought into sharp focus this year, with many more people out walking locally and benefiting both physically and mentally from the experience. There is no public benefit associated with the development and diversion of Footpath 60, but the negative effect on public users of the path is significant. We ask the Parish Council to object to the proposed diversion and to work closely with Kirklees to safeguard the path for current users and future generations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy. Thank you for that. So moving on to Noel Scanlon next, please.
Hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Thanks very much indeed. Right, I don't quite know where to start with that one. Right, let's try and go from the beginning and what you've received in the minutes. First of all, I've noted what Mr. Cheetham has actually said there. I'm afraid some of what he says is wrong, but I'm also wondering on behalf of my client why Mr. Cheetham on behalf of the council would seemingly be advising the parish council. Perhaps I'll come on to that later. What I can say is that Mr. Cheetham has said that if the council maintains its objection, then a public inquiry is likely to be or will be convened anyway. Yes, that is the case. The DFT has been in touch as such. However, I can tell you that the dynamics are possibly just about to change at Kirklees Council. I can tell you that Mr. Cheetham at the time of speaking is not yet aware of this. But maybe so in the next 48 hours. Just to come on to practicalities here, you've taken some advice from Mr. Cheetham, but mostly you've taken some advice from the YLCA. I'm afraid your advice from the YLCA is profoundly incorrect. It's not even relevant, folks. I'm sorry to tell you. That's about a planning appeal and a planning application. This is different. This is an application for a footpath diversion. I'm really sorry, and I do take no pleasure in this whatsoever, but I'm afraid those have been wasted endeavours on the parish council's part. Your financial liability, as well as being a commitment of resources, if you like, and expertise in order to substantiate your objection eventually, is one part of it. But also, in addition, we can claim costs against the council that causes a public inquiry to be convened. That is you. The difference is here, and I want to emphasise it again, as I have done in my letter of the 5th of October. You are a statutory consultee. You ain't just any old consultee anymore receiving a planning application. This is an application for a diversion of the footpath to the Secretary of State. As I've said in that letter, the parish council is separate to the council in this respect. What you say actually matters. One thing that's not come out in Mr. Cheetham's or Mr. Leader's missives there was that they are getting the parish council to reinforce and rather fire the bullets and I'll say this again, they're firing the bullets, but you're taking all of the risk in terms of costs and what have you. And in terms of costs, which you should have been advised on, it's in Part 8 of the Planning Inspectorate Guidance on Procedures for considering objections to definitive map and public path orders in England. Had the agenda been published before today, I would have been able to give you this information. Unfortunately, it was only published today for whatever reason. So you are where we are on that one. This is the reason for my original letter, if you like, which some of you I know found objectionable, but the fact that you found it objectionable, your personal feelings towards that, doesn't make it any less accurate, I'm afraid. We're giving you information now that we could have just ambushed you with a public inquiry. So I hope that that's a reaching out more than anything else. More than anything else, I would have to say that it would be particularly poor form if the parish council was not to at least to put the chairman, Councillor Hogley, forward for cross-examination in due course. Because if they're going to sustain their objection, they need to explain why they've done a volte-face considering the support of the scheme less than 12 months ago. And frankly, it would be poor form on the parish council's part. So I'm afraid that what Mr. Leader and Mr. Cheetham are telling you, please do take with a pinch of salt. I can tell you that your YLCA advice is entirely and wildly inaccurate, and you're putting yourselves at risk. I'll answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Noel. We will move on to the next speaker, which is David Sykes, please.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me, please?
Yeah.
That's great. Yes, I'm a resident of Netherthong, and I am a regular user of the path in question that leads up through Wolfstone Farm. I'm also a cub leader, scout leader, and one of our regular outings, more than once a year actually, is to take our cubs and beaver groups up the footpath from Netherthong to Wolfstone Heights so they can go and play hide and seek up there. And if the footpath was to be diverted, as the proposal states, it will put our cubs and beavers at greater risk of being involved in a car accident. They would come out on a corner, a blind bend, but they would then have to walk around to rejoin the original line of the footpath. This is an ancient right of way. It should be protected. My great-grandfather fought for similar rights at the turn of the last century against rich landowners who were trying to divert footpaths so that they could enjoy peace and quiet in their own homes. And I don't think it's right that the parish council should effectively be bullied on the grounds that it's going to cost them money if they object to a footpath diversion. I think that the parish council will be well supported, perhaps financially as well, by local residents who would not want them to concede on the diversion of the footpath purely because the landowners, who have obviously got lots of money to spare, are prepared to go all the way to court over this. I would like to see that original footpath to be maintained. It's an ancient right of way. There is no justifiable reason for diverting it. It should be left as it is. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, David, for that. Right, we had a final speaker we were expecting, Liz.
No, she hasn't arrived.
Hasn't arrived. Okay.
No.
Right. Okay. Thank you to all four of you for speaking to the Wolfstones item. We'll be coming to it shortly. So if you want to listen in to our discussion on it, you're very welcome. But we will move on with the next matters on the agenda before we reach that topic. But it is the top of our substantive agenda. Okay, so moving on, the first item 113, which is public bodies, the openness of local government bodies regulations. We're recording the meeting for the purposes of putting the meeting on YouTube as part of our sharing meetings that happen for the parish council, so people can watch them in the future. So they've been recorded on the clerk's computer. Does anyone else wish to record? No. Okay. Now, apologies for absence. Over to you, Liz.
Yep, we have apologies from Councillor Blacker, who's unwell, Councillor Brooke, who has personal difficulties. Councillor Firth is attending a group meeting in Kirklees. We have no comments from Councillor Gould, and we did have apologies from Councillor Pogson, but he's dragged himself along from his sickbed, and he's here.
Yes, well, he was here. I'm trying to see if I can spot him now.
He's just an M now down the bottom.
Yeah, so he is, sorry, yes, yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Right, next item, 115. Any members' interests in items of the agenda? No. Okay, and any new written requests for new DPIs, Liz?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. Next item, 116. Any officers' interests in items on the agenda? Liz and Rich?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. 117. Consider whether items on the agenda should be discussed in private. Anyone seen anything they think should be? No. Okay. Right, so moving on to a series of minutes that we need to confirm. So we've got 118, which is confirm.
We can't hear you, Rachel. I think you're frozen. Yes, Pat. Councillor Colling, did you want to say something? Can you unmute yourself? Oh dear. Right, Councillor, no, you can't unmute yourselves, I'm afraid. You're all on mute until I unmute you. So there's no point trying to speak unless you're invited to do so by the chairman. Councillor Pogson, can you unmute yourself, Councillor Pogson?
Would you like me to carry on as vice chair?
Yes, please.
Until Rachel returns.
Yeah.
Has anyone got? Can anyone send a message to Rachel, a text or WhatsApp, and I think just to let her know what's happening.
I think Doug's has done it. Have you, Doug's? Nod. Yeah, I think Doug's has done that.
Okay, so we're at item 2021-118, confirm minutes of the previous council minutes. So to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 6th of October 2020, number 2021-106 to 2021-1112 inclusive. Has everybody seen those minutes? Has anyone got any matters to anything they'd like to need amending, resolving on those minutes? Councillor Dalton.
Yeah, I have comments on the minutes to the meeting. I've tried to decipher what the clerk has attempted to convey in her minute to item 5 on the agenda, which was proposing, no, sorry, it's an unnumbered item. I think it should be 6. Councillor Hogley moved that the council issue a press statement distancing itself from the actions and beliefs of Councillor Dalton. And the council did resolve to issue a press statement. But the following sentence I've just tried to make some kind of sense of, because it doesn't reflect what was actually discussed under that item, which was whether a press statement was to be, it doesn't mention Councillor Brooke during that item making a complaint against a councillor for swearing in the meeting. It doesn't mention any of that. What it says is there was discussion about whether Councillor Dalton could be encouraged to take part in council meetings. I don't need any encouragement to take part in council meetings, as my presence, I think, attests. So maybe the clerk could actually try and translate for the council what exactly she's tried to convey in that item on the minutes, because what's written down is, as I say, indecipherable.
Okay, at this moment I've noted that Councillor Hogley has now returned, so if it's okay with everybody, I will. Councillor Hogley, did you catch all that?
Yes, I did. Yeah, sorry, my internet.
It's okay. I shall cede the chair back to you, Councillor Hogley, if that's okay.
Thank you for stepping in, Councillor Bogson. Apologies, I don't know why my internet just fell over. I think I caught most of that, Councillor Dalton. I think the issue there is that we did discuss the issuing of a press statement, so that's all correct. Then in terms of, there was some discussion where, from memory, a councillor suggested that you might be able to partake in meetings but not have a voting role in meetings. So that's what that point is
really?
trying to,
Subverting democracy, indeed, and very interesting.
So so that was reflecting that issue.
Well, I don't think.
No.
So can I suggest we, can I propose we move those minutes? Unless, okay, oh, hands are going up. Is that in favour? I need someone to second that, please. Okay, Tom, yeah, Councillor Tom Dixon seconding that. So can I vote for all those in favour of moving those minutes, please? Right, so Liz, we've got Councillor Colling, Councillor Sheard, Councillor Davies, Councillor Hall, Councillor East, Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Carey, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Pogson, Councillor Sweeney, Councillor Barker, which will be a
make it
majority
12.
anyway. So that's carried because that's a majority, the moving minutes. Okay, so we'll move on to the next, and Councillor Feeney just stepped in there. So we'll move on to the next minutes to ratify, please, which are, apologies, all the things disappeared off my screen. Next one is for the, under item 119, which is the Publications and Communications Committee. These are the minutes numbers 2021-01 to 2021-15. So can I ask Councillor, oh, it was myself actually who was chair of that meeting at the time, wasn't it? So can I propose we move those minutes, please? Have someone to second that? Yeah, Doug's. Okay, all those in favour, please. Okay, I can see a majority of hands. Okay, take those as approved. Thank you. Then the next one is the minutes of the Staffing Committee on 28 September 2021, and that's the minutes 01 to 15. So can I ask the Chair of Staffing Committee to propose those, which is Trevor? Liz, can you take him off mute, please?
Yeah. Okay, can you unmute yourself, Councillor Bellamy?
Yep.
Okay.
We're on. Thank you very much. I just want one item. I just want to clarify for my own peace of mind, if I could, regarding the iPad purchase for our climate emergency coordinator. I know it was brought up at the meeting regarding the contract for the purchase of, or whatever comes with the thing, was for 2 years, and our person employed is for a 12-month period. I know there's some discussion on that. Was anything resolved on that one?
Can I explain why that happened? It was because we don't have a facility for paying online for things like that. So we went for a contract, and that was what we were offered, was a two-year contract. It's really the difficulty that we have for paying for large amounts of things. We don't have a credit card facility, so we're constrained. And it did include the arrangements for the Microsoft Word. Was it, Rich? So it wasn't just the purchase of the iPad, it was actually all the things that came with it, its connection to O2, as well as the actual iPad itself. And I'm sure it will be used by somebody else. when the coordinator ceases her employment, because it belongs to the council.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Okay,
Anybody
so
else?
can we, sorry, I was just going to say, can we move those minutes?
Yes, can I ask that the staffing committee minutes numbered 202101, 202115 be confirmed, please?
Yeah, all those in favour? Okay, that's carried. Okay, thank you, Trevor. Okay, the next one, this is for the Extraordinary Climate Emergency Committee, which is on the 28th of September, number 2021, 15 to 31. Liz, if you could just take Councillor Davies off mute, please.
Yeah, I have. Can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
I am indeed. Yeah, I'd like to propose to the council the minutes of the Extraordinary Climate Emergency Committee meeting 28th of September, as Councillor Hogley just said, numbered 2021 15 to 2021 31 inclusive.
Okay, all those in favour?
To me, I'd like to make a comment on the minutes.
Okay, Councillor Dalton, make your comment, please.
Yeah, in the minutes to the Climate Emergency Standing Committee, you refer to members being co-opted, election of co-opted members. I think if you refer to the National Association of Local Councillors guidance, legal guidance notes 7 and 8, you'll find that these members are appointed to the committee, not co-opted. And the use of language is important in these matters. I would ask that the minutes are amended to reflect the reality that these people are not elected, they are appointed to committees. There's only one co-opted member on this council, who of course is not a member of the council, and that's Doug Carey, and he's co-opted to fill a vacancy. Members of subcommittees are appointed. Legal notes 7 and 8, NAL, see your language, not mine.
Councillor Dalton, I'd just say, I'd like you to stop referring to Councillor Carey as having any less legitimacy on the council than any other councillors. If you continue in that vein, you will be asked to leave the meeting. Now, in terms of Councillor Davies, do you want to clarify anything about the appointment of the members?
Yeah, sure. Very happy. Yeah, in terms of when it refers to election, that's certainly, that was about confirmation from the councillors who are on that committee that as councillors, parish councillors, we felt whether or not we felt that individuals who wish to be co-opted were of the right background to be co-opted. So it's not that in any way they are elected as full members onto the council whatsoever. They have no voting rights, but what they do have is a huge amount of energy and commitment, and I think, as we've reported before, done a huge amount of work in terms of us moving forward the climate emergency agenda and our action plan. If there is some technicality around legal terminology, as far as I'm concerned, that's not an issue, and that can be easily rectified. Okay. You know, if that is the case, then we'll look at it.
Yeah, could I ask the clerk to just check on the precise terminology in light of what Councillor Dalton's raised, make sure it's accurately reflects what the composition of the committee. I don't think there's any question on the legitimacy of the construct of the committee, but if the terminology needs adjusting to meet the legal definitions, then we should do that. Okay. So with that checking and confirmation of whether the terminology reflects the situation, can I ask that we move those minutes, please? All those in favour? Okay, I can see lots of hands. I can see a majority of hands. Okay, thank you. So those are moved. Okay, 3 more to get through. We've got the planning committee on the 5th of October. In lieu of Councillor Beckett, I've got Councillor Tom Dixon waving his hand. Can I just ask him to speak? Could you unmute him, Liz, please?
Yeah. Councillor Dixon, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have done. Is that
All
okay?
right, sorry, we couldn't hear you.
Right. In the absence of Councillor Blacker, I would like to propose the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting on the 5th of October 2020, numbered 2021-56 to 2021-73.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dixon. All those in favour, please. Okay, those are carried, thank you. And then on to the minutes of the Finance and Management Committee from the 12th of October. Councillor Pogson, do you wish to speak to that? Liz, could you unmute Councillor Pogson, please?
Yeah, I would like to propose that the minutes of the Finance and Management Committee on the 12th of October 2020, number 2021/22 to 20, I think that should be 2021-39 G for the Finance and Management Committee be accepted.
Okay, all those in favour, please. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, and finally, the minutes of the Community Assets Support Committee from the 19th of October. And Liz, could you unmute Councillor Colling, please?
Could I move that we accept these minutes from the meeting on the 21st of October of the CASC Committee, please?
Okay, thank you. Yes, 19th of October. Okay, we'll all move them, please. All those in favour? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for doing all those. Okay, so moving on to the next section of the agenda, which is referral from standing committees. So the first one is related to what we have members of the public speak to us about earlier, which is item 120, which is to consider the decision of the Planning Committee to maintain its objection to the proposed change in the route of public footpath Holme 60 at Wolfstones in Netherthong Ward. Now, everyone should have received a series of attachments with their agenda. So there was the advice we had from Giles Cheetham as Public Rights of Way officer. And then we had the letter that Mr. Scanlon had sent to the Planning Committee on 5th of October, the advice we've had from YLCA and then another one from Public Rights of Way officer, but more giving advice rather than the just notification of the fact that this was coming before us. Now, Councillor Blacker, unfortunately, due to ill health, can't be with us tonight because she was going to speak to this item. But the Deputy Clerk has been looking back at the history of any discussions that we've had on the Planning Committee related to this footpath, because discussions have been going on some time. It's actually come to in front of the committee 3 times, the Planning Committee. The first one of which we objected to, the second one of which, and then the application was actually withdrawn. Then and that was in 2018. Then in 2019, there was a Planning Committee which changed its mind, which is what Mr. Scanlon spoke about earlier in terms of a volte face, I think he called it. And then it was discussed again this year, at which point we objected to it. And obviously at each point the constitution of the Planning Committee would have been slightly different depending on where we were in the election cycles, for example, and each decision wasn't taken within 6 months of the previous one, so there's no question of it, it doesn't make any substantive difference, if you like. But it's worth noting all those decisions were made on the basis of information that was received by the Planning Committee at that time. And now, obviously, the proposed change has gone through to Kirklees, and Kirklees have opposed the change, and as a result, the person who's wishing to move the footpath has then gone to the Secretary of State, so they've gone to the highest level of appeal in the process. So really the issue is whether we stand by our latest view, which is obviously has been supported by a couple of members of the public tonight and through other correspondence that we've had directly to the planning committee, or whether we feel that we do not want to uphold our continuing objection to the movement of Wolfstone's footpath. So I don't know, can I, just before I ask councillors to speak, can I just ask our Deputy Clerk Rich, who supports the planning committee in terms of the clerk, if he's got anything to add at this stage?
I mean, you know, I think it's kind of set down in what Liz has said to you today, really, in terms of the situation we've been through. The point I wanted to make was really, you know, looking back at the kind of history of it, it does feel like to go again, you know, to support the amendment, where, you know, is something that would you know, go against centuries of tradition. So that was kind of my personal findings about it all.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I know the clerk sent round to members a copy of the letter that went after the latest planning committee meeting, at which we reiterated our objection to the Secretary of State, and that detailed why we thought it was an important footpath to stay where it currently is. So can I ask for comments from the councillors who have a view on it? I've got Councillor Davies to start, please.
Okay. Yeah, I should state, I think most people are aware, I'm also, as a district councillor, I'm also on the planning committee, Huddersfield subcommittee. So I was a member of the committee that discussed this back at the beginning of this year, where we voted 11-1 to reject the application. And I also spoke at the strategic committee recently, which discussed the new application as such, and I spoke against that. I think Andy Leader summed up fairly well earlier on. I think it was a very clear view from not just myself but other councillors that the private gain from this diversion does not outweigh the public loss, and you know, that was very much part of the actual discussion and decision. Certainly there were issues, as David Sykes has raised, around safety in terms of the road, and the fact that the diversion would take walkers around a fairly sort of blind bend as well. But I think that phrase of the private gain not outweighing the public loss is the strong one. Just a comment on Mr. Scanlon's fairly sort of hefty presentation to us in terms of the dire warnings of you know, the costs, etc. He's perfectly entitled to say that. Obviously he is, though. I think it's very clear from the advice given by Kirklees Council, our partners as such within, you know, as we are the first tier of government, they're certainly the second tier. It's very clear that the advice is, unless we were acting in a totally unreasonable way, it's highly unlikely that that would be an issue. However, even if that was an issue, I don't think we should be deterred from making decisions based on what we believe to be the right thing to do, rather than people throwing forward possible issues around costs and finances. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Davies. Does anyone else wish to speak on this? I can't see anyone waving. Oh. Okay. Councillor Dalton and then Councillor Tom Dixon, please.
Yeah, it's like getting back up to speed with this issue. Just to correct a few points, there was no volte-face in any of these decisions. Planning applications were put towards the parish council, and they presumably were dealt with in accordance with their merits. I was on the planning committee as the vice chairman under the chairmanship of Councillor Roberts. We're the two parish councillors for the Netherthong ward, and to have this for you to firstly claim that you've copied this information to me is just no, it's galling listening to you say you've had this letter communicated to you when you know full well you haven't sent this letter to me. Anyway, that's by the by. A decision was made in 2019. This application was gone through thoroughly. It was a process that involved both the parish councillors who know this footpath well, and I welcome the comments of David Sykes, the local parishioner who's running the Scout group and the Cub group, and I do take on board his concerns. The reality is anybody who walks up Knoll Lane, anybody who walks up Wolstone Roads, walks on that bend. The idea that this is a public safety issue for pedestrians is basically stretching an argument for people who really don't know the locale. If you're walking up that road, you walk along that bend. Whether if you're doing a particular walk of going up the walk straight through the site and onto Wolfstones, yes, there's a small diversion, but there's no change to the fundamental rights of people to get from A to B. It's a small diversion around the property, and the idea that Councillor Davies can have such contempt not only for the parish councillors who made this decision in 2019 in favour of the applicant, by the way, and he was on the parish council at the time. He could have sat in that meeting. He could have given his view at that point, but no, he didn't. He made a decision a year later. Did he have any interest in the views of the parish council, the Netherthong ward councillors? No, he didn't. Does he care about it costing 30 grand, 60 grand, whatever the end cost will be? Well, I've said my piece.
Okay, thank you. So I'm assuming, so you don't think we should object, is what I take from your summary. Okay, does anyone else, sorry, Councillor Tom Dixon. Liz, if you could unmute him, please.
Sorry, Tom, having a bit of trouble with my finger here. Can you unmute yourself, Tom?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I take on board what Councillor Dalton has said. The planning committee did accept this diversion. I wasn't in attendance at the meeting. If I'd been in attendance at the meeting, I would have spoken against it and voted against doing this. But that is my own personal viewpoint on this footpath, having used it myself before. And I agree with what the local resident David Sykes has said on doing this. I don't agree with the diverting this footpath. But I'm also wary as well about potential court costs. I kind of feel a bit bullied about this because we're getting told that if you don't retract, you're going to get this huge bill. I don't want the parish council to have a huge legal bill. No, I don't think any of us do. But I think we also need to stand up for our residents as well. And by what Councillor Hogley said, that if we represent a good argument and why we are doing this, then if we do put a good enough argument across, by the sounds of it, we won't get this legal bill. Is that the right impression I'm getting? That's
my understanding from what we've been advised. Yeah. Just to clarify, actually, I've just before I see Councillor Trevor Bellamy wants to speak. I've just managed to pull up on my screen when we the times we discussed it. So it was the back on 20th of August 2018, the planning committee talked about it, and that's a point at which we objected to the diversion, or expressed desire to object to diversion. Then it was withdrawn in the December of that year, and then what Councillor Dalton has referred to was then in June 2019, so just less than a year later, but importantly over the 6 months. We then supported the application, but then we discussed it again in September 2020, at which point we opposed it. But clearly what's been touched on is there's different people at each stage, but I think it's I'd be fairly confident in saying I think Rich has collated some of the information we've had from members of the public expressing concern about the rerouting of the path during that period. So I'll just ask Councillor Trevor Bellamy to speak, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I've just one query with regard to the comments made about YLCA, their recommendations, etc. Obviously quite strong comments made regarding the information we've been passed. Did we perhaps ought to be clarifying that what we've been given is correct, or at the very least go back to them and ask for an opinion? Thank you.
Okay. Right, Liz, is there anything you want to add to what YLCA have commented, or was that through Rich? Sorry.
I think Rich would be a better person to ask, yeah.
Okay.
I'd find it first, just a minute.
So we'll just give Rich a moment.
Yeah, just give me a second.
I've seen your hand, Councillor Dalton. Thank you.
Sorry, it's taking me some time. It's an awful lot of minutes.
I've got it here. Shall I read out the advice?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Liz.
Yeah. Okay. When a council is objecting to any planning application, well, of course, as Nell Scanlon's pointed out, it isn't a planning application. But anyway, it says it needs to ensure that its observations are appropriate and made on planning grounds and can be substantiated. The comments that have been made appear to be opinion-based on fact. If the observations made by the council are honest, with no malice attached, the council will be able to rely on that if challenged through the courts. No, well, Mr. Scanlon's shaking his head, but that is what that letter says.
Okay, so it sounds to me as if it would be beneficial for us to, given that this is, Mr. Scanlon has raised, this is slightly different to a standard planning application because it's an application to the Secretary of State. I would suggest that we need to go back to YLCA and specify.
Can I say one thing, Chairman, that Mr. Cheetham was quite happy if you wanted to suspend standing orders at this stage to answer any questions from the councillors about the process, and this might be the time if anybody feels that he can clarify any of these issues.
Okay, can Mr. Cheetham, are you still with us? Can we ask you to clarify how it's different to? Sorry, we need to suspend standing orders first. Are we? Yeah, I can see it's unmuted. Can I ask us all to suspend standing orders briefly, please? We'll try and keep this discussion as short as we can, but it's important we know where we all stand. Okay, Mr. Cheetham, are you able to provide any clarification of
well, before I say anything else, I'd just like to note a couple of things. Is that I'm here obviously as a Kirklees Council officer. I am not here as an advisor to the parish council. I'm providing information and asking questions as a public rights of way, as a highways officer for Kirklees Council. So Mr. Scanlon's depiction of me as an advisor to this council, I spoke at the start as a member of the public for 3 minutes, not under any other provisions. I'll just clarify that. In relation to what Noel said about the email of YLCA of the 27th, or at least yeah, the one that was forwarded by Rich McGill on the 27th of the 10th, 2020, which starts Dear Ms. Bennett, they don't seem to have grasped what it is that you've asked them. it isn't relating to a planning application. So that part of what Noel said during his time, I would agree that they don't seem to have recognised what it is that's been described. In relation to the discussions and the point that was raised by Noel about costs or whatever, I happened at the time that he said it to have on another screen to have the costs information in relation to orders on there from which is actually from DEFRA, although the DFT is likely to be similar. They haven't grasped exactly what this is. This isn't a matter that would go to the courts. If somebody was seeking costs, then they would ask the inspector, and the inspector would make a decision about costs. They would not make a decision about the numbers, i.e. the money, but they may make a decision about appropriate costs, etc. But I'd refer back to the comment that I made in the first as the first speaker, public speaker tonight, about unreasonable behaviour. Currently, the 247 process is at an informal stage, and the parish council doesn't need to make any permanent decisions about the public inquiry process. It's quite it's possible that there won't be a public inquiry. It depends whether the DFT decide to progress with the application as it stands at the moment.
So can I just ask if the DFT does progress with the application and we end up with a public inquiry, is there then at that stage, is there then the opportunity, should the parish council wish to withdraw from that, to withdraw, or are we making a decision today that would mean that we have to follow all the way through?
Well, if you wait until a public inquiry actually occurred, then at that stage there, then I can't speak to the parish council specifically. If I speak generically over the years of dealing with these types of matters, if somebody withdrew at the last minute and they had caused the public inquiry to take place, then they may be susceptible to costs. But as I've identified, Kirklees Council has objected to the order, so if it is to progress as things currently stand, then a public inquiry would have to occur anyway, irrespective of the parish council's objection. Because the Kirklees Council objection would cause the calling of a public inquiry unless the Secretary of State decided just to drop the matter. So the thing is that there's nothing to stop somebody when they go to public inquiry saying we're making an application for costs. There's no protection against a potential application for costs. It's like being sued. Somebody can say, I'm going to sue you. Well, there's nothing you can do to stop somebody suing you. Whether they're successful or not is a different question.
Yeah.
So that's as that sits. But what I'm saying is that as things, generally speaking, as things stand at the moment, you're being asked to consider your objection. You're being asked to consider the matter generally without information. And as I pointed out in my statement, Kirklees Council does not have information from the consultation process with the DFT. Only Mr. Scanlon and his client have it. You do not have it. We do not have it.
Okay. Thank you for that. Right. I'm going to have Councillor Dalton and then Councillor Davies, please.
Yeah, there's so much coming up here. It's just unreal to listen to be quite honest. Firstly, Mrs. Chairman, Madam Chairman, you intimated that feedback had been received from our parishioners. That, well, I certainly haven't had this feedback. It's not been copied to me. Is it being selectively distributed to some councillors or others? That's one thing. Secondly, the clerk to the council, who for some reason seeks to get advice from the local association of whatever they are councillors, rather than the councillors of this council, never mind the parish councillors. I mean, it's just unreal, the lack of respect for process. You've suspended standing orders in the middle of a council meeting whilst you're muting councillors, and then de facto deciding to invite a member of the public to interject in the middle of an item on a council meeting whilst muting councillors. This is just unreal. I suggest we do not make any resolution on this matter at this meeting. The members of the council clearly don't understand what they're getting involved in here. For the clerk of the council to give advice regarding planning applications when we're not even talking about a planning application.
Thank you, Councillor Dalton. Okay, your views are understood and noted. Right, Councillor Davies, you wanted to speak, and then Councillor Pogson and Councillor Carey, please.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Hogley. Yeah, I think we're definitely getting into an area of, you know, local democracy here, and the ability of local representatives, whether that's parish representatives in this case, but obviously there's also been decisions made at a district level, and whether that local democracy should be put to one side on the basis that somebody issues at this point potential threats of suing us for whatever that behaviour is. And I think the key issue is that, one, have we followed the right procedures, which in terms of, I think everybody's has said, certainly from the planning committee within the council, that was the case. Were decisions that were made, and I wasn't party to that decision on the parish council, were they reasonable? And were they representing the views of not every resident, but of some residents? You know, that seems to be the case as well. Did anybody have a vested interest on the parish council? As far as I know, no. In fact, the only vested interest is obviously quite understandably being expressed by Mr. Scanlon, because he represents his client. So for me, those are the things that we should be looking at and discussing. Any potential lawsuits, any potential financial issues that come about will be based on that. I think, to be fair, Mr. Scanlon has not only been issuing such comments to the parish council, it's also to Kirklees Council and to individuals and residents who have had the temerity to actually make comment and object to this. Okay. So right, I think we need to take that on board as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Davies. Right, Councillor Pogson?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that we seem to have gone into a bit of a free-for-all. We suspended standing orders, and then we seem to, without unsuspending the standing orders, we had. I think it's only fair if we suspend standing orders to let one member of the public speak, which is, which is fine. This parish council has want to do. Then we have another member of the public who was indicating that he wanted to speak as well while standing orders were suspended. I think it's only fair that we let that person put themselves forward and have their right of reply. Then, and this is the process thing, after that then we should re-engage with standing orders, and the councillors are then able to speak, or if they want to put questions to those people when we suspended standing orders, that's quite their want. But when we go back to the parish council debate, we should then reinstate standing orders. So I think there's a process thing that I'm a little bit disappointed at. It seems things seem to run away with themselves. However, so basically to clarify, are we still in a position where standing orders have been suspended, or have we gone back into the council meeting as proper? Or if parish council, if standing orders are suspended, then I do think that Mr. Scanlon, who was indicating wanted to speak, should have a right to reply at that point before we resolve the parish council meeting. All
right, and nice Councillor Pogson's suggestion. Apologies for it's more difficult to handle adjusting to resuming standing orders and suspending standing orders in the world of Zoom, to be honest. So apologies on my part for not making that clear. So if we're currently in a stage of suspending standing orders, can I ask Mr. Scanlon, who was indicating he wished to speak, and given, as Councillor Pogson has said, Mr. Cheetham spoke to us, I'm happy to hear a response from Mr. Scanlon. Then we'll resume standing orders and try and bring the discussion to a close. Okay, Mr. Scanlon, please.
just in the interests of fairness, everybody, you've obviously opened that up to a member of the public, though I would dispute that for reasons that I'll come on to. Does any other member of the public wish to speak before I do? Because it seems that I'm going to need to crystallise some of the things that are actually being said, most of which are inaccurate, I would add.
I think, to be honest, Mr. Scanlon, the reason we're suspending standing orders to allow us to hear from Mr. Cheetham was because of his, whilst he spoke as a member of the public, we're aware of his knowledge as Public Rights Away Officer at Kirklees, and similarly for you, we're aware that you represent the client in this particular case, and therefore I'm confident we've heard from the members of the public their views on the matter, and I don't want to have a longer discussion on it than we need. So if you could just answer or give your views that you wish to, Mr. Scanlon, please.
Right, okay, fair enough, and thanks for the opportunity. Right, I will say, Council, it's a legitimate question. What are you doing? Who is Mr. Cheetham to you? I've heard him called an advisor, an expert, his deep knowledge. Okay, I've heard all of these things. Mr. Cheetham seemingly also can't decide who he is. He's either a member of the public, a Public Rights of Way officer for Kirklees Council, or your advisor. I'm sorry, I don't know, but where Mr. Cheetham and I are actually aligned is that Mr. Cheetham has confirmed what I've said, that your advice from the YLCA is not accurate, not in any way accurate at all. So thereby, that presents a risk to you, but some of what Mr. Cheetham has advised you is also inaccurate. You've talked about Mr. Cheetham's expertise. I am sorry to do this. I used to be the solicitor that used to advise Mr. Cheetham many moons ago. I don't know if I've got any resonance at all.
Let's try not to make it personal, Mr. Scanlon. Please just.
I am not making it personal in any way, shape, or form. But you did mention expertise. I have some of my own, Councillor Hogley. So to follow that through, we're talking about claims for costs. Giles is right there. It doesn't necessarily go through the courts at the first instance. What would happen is that where there has been quote unquote unreasonable behaviour, for example, causing a public inquiry to be convened, a claim for costs can be put in. Where the parish council moves with an unsubstantiated objection and continues with that unsubstantiated objection, then naturally there would have to be a claim for costs. I think that's obvious now, but something that Mr. Cheetham doesn't point out to you is that even if we were to make no claim for costs, the inspector himself can unilaterally make a claim for costs against the Holme Valley Parish Council. So that's just further information for you. One of your councillors, I think it was Councillor Bellamy, recommended that you might want to go, and if indeed you did wish to get independent advice, you might want to go and revisit the YLCA, who now you have heard from all sides of the fence is inaccurate. So if I could encourage you to possibly defer the meeting and take the appropriate advice, at least the parish council will know where it is. I've got to stress, my client has absolutely no desire whatsoever to be entered into conflict with his own parish council. Okay, but you can see where the position is at the moment. One, you're taking unofficial stroke official, I don't know what it is, advice from Kirklees Council, which is actually a separate consultee to the Holme Valley Parish Council, but also it has changed its view in the last 12 months. Why it is not supporting the position now is unclear. It has put in an objection to the DFT, which is entirely rebuttable, which I put it to you through you, Chair, that you cannot substantiate, and you're not going to be able to substantiate. So I will leave this one with you to do what you will. I'm very happy to answer any questions while standing orders are suspended, but otherwise I shall let that lie for now.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Scanlon. Can I suggest we resume standing orders? Does anyone wish to make any additional comment? I've got Councillor Carey and then Councillor Pogson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of comments, really. One, I didn't think we should have suspended standing orders in the first place because it was clearly going to get into a bit of an unhelpful exchange. This matter's quite clear on the agenda. We're asked to consider the decision of the Planning Committee. As a new councillor, clearly people change their mind, new evidence comes to mind, we get new representations from different people. Planning committee's made a decision. It's a decision, as somebody who used to be very active in the countryside and fought for rights of way and worked alongside rights of way groups, I think it's really important to keep traditional routes open wherever possible. So I support and want to uphold that. And I think we shouldn't really be scared. The tone of the contributions, particularly from Councillor Dalton and to an extent Noel as well, are probably unhelpful. I think we just need to basically make a decision to uphold this. That's what I would propose. But I do think it would be worth building into that some caveat that we can just triple check things. But I'm not overly concerned by anything I've heard today. And I don't think we should be scared of making a decision.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carey. Thank you for making that proposal. We'll just hear from Councillor Pogson, Councillor Paul Dixon, and then Councillor Greaves, and then we'll move to a vote on the proposal that Doug's has made. Councillor Carey's made. Sorry, right. Councillor Pogson first.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I think we've talked this quite at length. I believe we should move to a vote. For myself, I believe that we should support the decision made by the planning committee, because I don't think we should support the decision that committee's made, and they made that committee in good faith, and that yeah, we should support, confirm that decision that's made by the planning committee. But as and when this goes to a public inquiry, we should seek independent advice at that point, as and when the parish council deems necessary.
Okay, Councillor Paul Dixon.
I think everybody's making a meal out of a molehill here. We've got a situation where Kirklees Council have taken it upon themselves, according to Councillor Davis, 11 to 1, that they were going to oppose it. We can walk away at no cost to ourselves and leave Kirklees to do the running on this. We can't, as a parish council, afford to get any big costs. Kirklees Council can afford anything they want. I want to say, let's leave it as it is, forget about it, and let's have Kirklees Council run the show from now on. We like to pass things on to officers at Kirklees when we're doing planning matters. Let's do it this time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dixon. Right, finally, Councillor Greaves, and then we'll move to a vote.
Hello. Whilst it's helpful to hear the views of other people and other bodies, in the first instance, Parish Council takes its guidance from NALC and YLCA. I would suggest perhaps that the reason that the response doesn't match up with the situation maybe is because we didn't correctly outline this situation. So I would suggest actually that we go back to YLCA with full details of the circumstances and ask for their opinion. And we really ought to do that at this stage. And if YLCA can't give us a sufficient view, then we should look to commissioning our own legal advice. And there are sources that we've been to previously that we can go to. It wouldn't be appropriate for us to take guidance or direction from either the applicant's advisor or the advisor of another body. They have their own roles to fulfill. We need to get our own advice. YLCA and NALC are our official sources in the first instance. So I would suggest that we actually defer any further discussion on this until there has been a meaningful discussion with YLCLA over the details of the case. Okay.
Okay, so Councillor Greaves, do you want to make that? That sounds like a counter proposal. Or
yeah, I'm happy to propose that as a course of action.
Okay, so can you just restate what you want us to vote on then, please?
Yeah, defer further consideration and receive detailed advice from YLCA.
Okay, do we have anyone who wishes to second that? Okay, I've seen Councillor Trevor Bellamy. Yeah, so we'll take a vote on the counter proposal first. Am I doing that in the right order?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so all those in favour of Councillor Greaves' approach, raise your hands, please. So we've got Councillor Kath Bellamy, Councillor Trevor Bellamy, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor East. That's all I can see.
5 hands.
Yeah, I think that was the 5 that I said, I think. Yeah.
So that's not carried.
Okay, all those, Councillor Roberts, was that a vote for that? All those against that course of action? Is it Councillor Carey, Councillor Colling, Councillor Feeney, Councillor Barker, Councillor Sheard, Councillor Gould, Councillor Sweeney. There's more against anyway than 5. I can see.
Definitely 6. Yeah.
Okay. And any. Okay, so that motion is not carried. Okay, so we'll move to the substantive motion, which was Councillor Carey proposing that we uphold the decision of the planning committee and continue with the objection as it stands. Can I just check, Councillor Carey? Liz, could you take him off mute, please? That's what he wants to propose.
Well, when I spoke, I actually did say I think there should be, before anything formal's written, I just think we need to take advice, which sounds similar to what Charles is saying, but I still think we can make the decision tonight. That's what I'm saying, to support in principle, supporting that decision. I just think it may be sensible to get a view before anything, but it feels like we've already put something in writing anyway, so I don't see what else there is to even check, because that's already in train what we've done. So basically I'm saying we should support the decision of that planning meeting, because that's where we are and that's what I want to do.
Okay, so I think we had Councillor Pogson was seconding that and the things raised earlier. So all those in favour of maintaining the objection, but as I think Councillor Carey has mentioned, still seeking updated advice from YLCA, but for as it currently stands, maintaining the objection. All those in favour of that, please. We've got Councillor Carey, Councillor Sweeney, Councillor Pogson, Councillor Gould, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Barker,
10.
Councillor Davies, Councillor Feeney, Councillor Sheard, Councillor Colling, Councillor Tom Dixon, I'll add myself to that, Councillor Lockley. All those against, please. Anyone against that? Councillor Dalton, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Paul Dixon. And I can't see any others, so I assume the others are abstentions. So that motion is carried. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you to Mr. Scanlon, Mr. Sykes and Mr. Cheetham for joining us. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you wish, but that's the end of our discussion on Wolfstones for tonight. So thank you. Okay, right, moving on to item 121, which is referral from the Staffing Committee to approve the appointment of the new Climate Emergency Coordinator from August 17th, 2020, working 18.5 hours per week on a year-long contract with a salary of £12,000. This is, it's related to the following item, which is just clarifying the responsibilities of staffing and full council. And I don't know, Liz, do you want to add why this is in as a specific item, please?
Yeah, I think when the Staffing Committee delegated 3 people to interview and appoint a climate emergency coordinator, I think everybody believed that they had been delegated to do that. But when we took advice from YLCA, they said that our terms of reference don't specifically allow that, and we need to come back and properly agree on the appointment of this person by full council, and then change our terms of reference so that it is possible for full council to delegate the whole appointment of staff to the Staffing Committee.
It stems from some ambiguity in our terms of reference, rather than any sort of deliberately going against the process. Right, we have discussed this appointment at length before, and obviously the person is in post and has been. So I'm just saying, I think Councillor Dalton just wants to make a comment, and then we'll move to vote on it, please.
Yeah, it's just a reiteration of what's been said at previous meetings, that the new climate emergency coordinator is a subcontractor bought in service. She's not a member of staff. She's not on a salary. Her fee for the agreed term is £12,000 presumably. She's not on the stamp. She's not on a salary. It's just the wording of the item really that doesn't reflect that we're buying in a service for £12,000. We're not engaging a member of staff.
Can I just ask Liz to respond to that, please?
Yeah, she is a member of staff. That was another bit of advice that we had, that she had to be a member of staff. So she has a contract, she pays a stamp and tax, and is paid on a monthly basis, just like the clerk and the deputy clerk.
Okay, so can I ask us to approve that appointment, please? Okay, all those in favour, please? So I can see Councillor Sheard, Councillor Colling, Councillor Feeney, Councillor Barker, Councillor Davies, Councillor Dixon, Councillor Kath Bellamy, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Gould, Councillor Carey, Councillor Pogson, Councillor East and Councillor Sweeney, and myself, please. And then any against, please? Okay, Councillor Dalton. Okay, and I'll take it the others are abstentions. Okay, thank you for that. So moving on to the next item, which, as I mentioned, is related, because it's about making sure that our scheme of delegations is absolutely clear about what is delegated to the staffing committee. So there is a proposed amendment to the scheme of delegation within the staffing committee section, and the advice of the YLCA is contained within your agenda. But effectively, the proposal is to insert into section 4.6 terms of reference for the staffing committee the following statement: the staffing committee will be responsible for all matters relating to the advertising, interviewing, selection and appointment of a member of staff where such a post has been approved by full council. So can I propose we include that amendment in our scheme of delegations? Can someone second that, please? Yeah, Councillor Colling, thank you. All those in favour? Okay, so Councillor Shear, Councillor Colling, Councillor Feeney, Councillor Barker. I can see a majority.
12.
Oh, do you want me to go through each person?
No.
Okay. No. Okay. Right. We've got a majority, so that's carried. Thank you. Okay. The next item about the Climate Emergency Committee. I'm going to ask Councillor Davies to speak to this one, please.
Sorry, I couldn't find you. You've moved.
Sorry, I wasn't moving, honestly.
No, I know, it's just the screen.
I will be brief on this. This really is for information. I think we've discussed a number of times the transparency around what we're doing, and the fact that we want to be transparent in terms of the Climate Emergency Committee. As you're aware, we had a budget approved for this financial year. Because of COVID, obviously, we've spent very little of that, apart from the recruitment of Michelle, who's doing a fantastic job at the moment. What we want to do is just make sure that people are aware that as a committee, we will now start to be using our budget for a number of areas. And you see there outlined a number of key areas that we'll be focusing on. Michelle, again, with other members of the committee, did a fantastic job in organising some online events, which hopefully councillors have seen, which range from everything from giving energy advice to residents to some, I have to say, some fantastic contributions from our farming community, particularly Longley Farm, I think, in terms of the work they put in terms of explaining what they do with regards to regenerative agriculture. So this is really more of a heads up than anything. Obviously, the decisions on the spend will be made in the committee. They will be very much around, again, communicating to residents what we're doing. We've already, as you probably, well, maybe you're not aware, the water fountain is already installed, and that's something that we've put in place already. There is some cost around printing a board to go alongside that as well. But as I say, this is more of a heads up, Councillor Hogley, for the full council, and I'm more than happy if anybody wanted to ask me any questions or if there's any comments.
Can I just clarify then, is this effectively for us to note rather than seeking any approval?
That's what I understand. After discussions with the clerk today, the clerk said that the decisions, the actual decisions on spend are delegated to the committee as such when that spend is needed. Liz, have I got that correct?
Yeah, as long as it's within the budget you allocated, it's up to your committee to make the decision. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So on that basis, Councillor Hogley, I think that this is more for note, and as I say, for transparency and for communication as to the full council what we intend doing.
That's great. Conscious that it is just to note, I would suggest that any substantive issues about the list of things raised will come up at the Climate Emergency Committee, which I believe meets next Monday anyway. I'd ask Councillor Roberts, you're a member of that Climate Emergency Committee from memory, so are you able to hold your question until that meeting? Liz, could you just unmute Councillor Roberts?
Can you unmute yourself, Councillor Roberts?
Still can't hear you, Councillor Roberts.
Oh, I'm there now. Yeah. I'm there. Yeah. Can I ask Councillor Davis here?
Yeah.
I keep getting some correspondence, which is via the Home First Technical College, which is regarding all this climate emergency stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some paperwork, which is exactly the same logo as what the parish council has with regards to this emergency. It's this like a sea swirl type thing. Mm-hmm. But it did give another person's name on it. It was nothing, that person's nothing to do with the parish council. And I'm getting quite concerned as to who actually is running it. Is it the technical college or is it the parish council? Because if it's the technical college, or if they are coming on board, then surely they should have some responsibilities with regards to the cost of the young lady that has been set on to do the work that she's doing. As I say, some of it seems to be a tremendous amount coming from the technical college. So who actually is running the show? Is it the parish council, or is it the technical college, or is it a joint venture?
Councillor Davies, if you can just give a brief reply, and then
I'll try. I'm not certain, obviously, because I've not seen the correspondence you're talking about. Well, we are lucky in that we do have partners that distribute our literature, our correspondence, our events, etc. And it may well be that's what you're referring to. By all means, if Councillor Roberts, if you want to send it to me, I can give you a more detailed response on that one. But in terms of Misha Brown, she's clearly doing the work for us as a parish council, but that doesn't mean to say she won't be partnering with other organisations. But yeah, please send it to me, and I'll have a look and confirm that for you then.
Okay, if you could do that, Councillor Roberts, that would be great. And any obviously we've got Climate Emergency Committee next week to pick up any more detail associated with that, please. I'm just conscious of the large number of agenda items to get through. So the next one, 124, which is there was a previous decision by the Finance and Management Committee in 2019 to discuss grant applications in private. It's been raised that perhaps this shouldn't be the case, and the advice from the YLCA is that discussion shouldn't be held in private session unless there's sensitive financial information to be kept from private view. So the proposal is that the grant applications are not to be held in private as a matter of course, which is how they were for finance and management. So can I propose that they're not held in private automatically, unless, as it says, there's any sensitive information. Okay, looks like Tom Dixon's seconding that. So all those in favour of that, please. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Liz, that was carried. Okay, thank you. Right, item 125 is to approve the payment schedule for October 2020. So obviously that's in your pack of information. Has anyone got questions, or can I proceed with proposing that we approve that? Anyone second approving it, please? Yeah, Councillor Colling, thank you. So all those in favour, put your hands up, please. Okay, yeah, I can see a majority, thank you. Okay, moving on to payment schedule for November 2020. This is item 126. Again, you've got it in your pack of information. Does anyone have any queries on it? Can't see any. Okay, can I propose that we approve that payment schedule for November 2020, please? I can see that seconded by Councillor Carey. All those in favour? Hands up, please. Thank you very much. Super. Thank you. Okay, the next item, 127, is to note. This is the budget spreadsheet which shows expenditures at the end of October 2020. Obviously, the summary is that the council spending is mostly on target for the year so far, with some underspend likely and therefore available towards the end of the financial year. And I know that Rich has helpfully made sure that both obviously members of the Finance and Management Committee, but also chairs of various committees are aware of what the situation is in terms of helping the committees set appropriate budgets for next year. So that's just a note. Okay, so that's all noted. Can't see any hands, so that's good. Okay, item 128, this is again just to note the £2,000 grant made to the Holme Valley Mutual Aid Group in May 2020, which was to subsidise expenses of volunteers should they appear or be claimed during the COVID-19 emergency, or the first COVID-19 emergency, should we say, is going to be returned to the council as it hasn't been utilised. So that's just for information. Councillor Carey, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, just to update people, as people know, I'm the well, effectively the chair of the mutual aid project. We stood down our volunteers largely because there wasn't a lot of demand there. A lot of those volunteers are now working with what's called the Anchor, which is the Home First Tech. We are on with another programme now called the Big Treats, and we're working on that this week, and we may well be putting forward some requests for funding. But we have been working with local councillors, and some money has flowed from the authority as well for some of our work. So things may change, but at the moment we can't see ourselves using that money in the near future, so it seemed appropriate to give it back.
Okay, super. Thank you, Councillor Carey. All right, so that's noted. Thank you. So item 129 is to consider whether the tenant of our retail shop in the Garside building, so that's the other side of the public toilets in the middle of Home Firth, can be given a rent holiday. I believe they've put in a request to the clerk for us to consider it. They currently pay in the region of £400 a month. I'm conscious, looking at the budget information that we had, that there is money within that budget available. But the proposal is that we give the tenant a rent holiday for the duration of this 4-week lockdown. Councillor Dixon, Tom Dixon.
Yeah, I would like to propose that we do give them a rent holiday for the duration of the lockdown. It would be very difficult for them to, well, they can't trade. The shop can't open at the moment. So it would be quite unfair for us if we want them to give them a good chance at the shop being a success there. We should back them, and on this occasion we should give them the rent holiday.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dixon. Someone want to second that proposal? Yeah, Councillor East. Okay, all those in favour of providing a rent holiday for the duration of this current lockdown, which is currently 4 weeks? Okay, yeah, that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next section of the agenda, which is policy updates and policy changes. The first one is 129. This is funding to churches. We've been sent some information by the clerk just clarifying some sort of history of this, which just is summarised on the agenda, which is in November 2019, Council resolved to cease the provision of maintaining church clocks in the light of advice from YLCA, because there was no legal basis upon which we could do that. There is a summary that's more extensive than that that's been provided by the clerk, but effectively the advice is that whilst in the past Parish Council has supported churches, and I know there's a lot of history and strong belief that that was the right thing to do at the time, we're now in a situation where we don't have the legal basis upon which to give grants to churches because they're not actually public clocks. So the conclusion in the report from the clerk is that the Parish Council can continue to maintain the closed churchyard at New Mill, because that's a separate issue, but it can't pay for anything that actually belongs to the church. So as a result, it can't maintain church clocks, nor make grants for turning church premises into community spaces, or make grants towards church repairs or church organs. So that is the situation. So that's really to note, unless anyone has any particular thing they want to raise. Right, I've got Councillor Pogson and then Councillor Roberts, please.
Whilst I take notice of the what the information come from YCLA and I've got sort of you know, the Church Buildings Council is aware that the National Association of Local Councils has recently circulated a briefing note in which they state that the 1894 Local Government Act prevents parish councils from spending money on churches. However, the Church Building Councils, following legal advice, has concluded that the provisions of the Localism Act 2011 and the Local Government Act 1972 allow for local authorities, including parish councils, to contribute to the upkeep of church property under certain circumstances. Those circumstances being mainly related to the public benefit achieved. So I don't think it is as cut and dried with the church clock. The benefit from a church clock is not by generally by the congregation, but it is by the community. The community at large surrounding that church and in that area, and therefore I think that there is a public benefit to people, and I don't believe that we, in this instance, the maintenance of a church clock is not solely for the benefits of the people who attend that church and the members of that church. I believe it is generally for the public at large, and therefore I think we should really look at this, and we should fund church clocks as we have done for many years. There's also this. It is not that clear. There's also a document which is the Parish and Town Council's briefing to Parliament dated 25th of February 2019, number 04827, which again discusses this and discusses that this matter has never been tested actually in court, and that the jury is still out regarding this matter, and no decision has been made, and it will be up to each council to make a decision on what they are actually funding and the merits of each case for what is being asked for. And there again, so I reiterate, I believe that a church clock is not for benefit of solely for the parishioners and the people attending church, but is for benefit of the public at large, namely the people of the Holme Valley. And therefore, I believe we should continue to fund the maintenance of the church clocks within the Holme Valley. That would be my proposal.
Has Rachel disappeared? I can't see Rachel on the screen anymore. Can I ask?
I find it's slightly difficult for me to take over the chair when it's actually a matter that I'm actually speaking on in support of.
No, you can still ask people for their views and make that happen.
But if everyone's okay with me carrying on and taking over as the role of chair until Rachel returns, I've not seen who has stuck the hand up first, so I'm going to go with Sarah Sheard first, if that's all right. Councillor Sarah Sheard.
Yes, I think that the church clocks, basically the church has absolutely billions in assets, and okay, let's be reasonable. Maybe the church can go halves with us in this time of austerity. But I do think they're really relying on our goodwill when, you know, they are very wealthy, the church. That's all I have to say.
Okay, Councillor. Yeah, I think the people have got to speak, and I'll take them in this order if that's okay. I'm sorry if I've missed anybody, but just stick your hand up there. I'm going to go through them in the order that I've got them. I'm sorry if it's not the order when people's hands went up, but I've got Councillor Paul Dixon, then Councillor Trevor Bellamy, Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Carrick, Councillor Dalton, Councillor Roberts, Councillor East. Is anybody else? Councillor Greaves. If I've read your name out, stick your hand down. If I've not said your name, just keep it up. Okay, Councillor Paul Dixon then first.
Yeah, you've got to unmute yourself. Okay.
Eventually. Sorry, Michael, I think this is something I'm very strongly feel against. I quite agree with what you say. It's tradition that we've done this, and this council is losing traditions. We don't have many left, and this is one of the things that we've done for all the time that I've been on the council, which is a lot longer, probably nearly as much as everybody that's around the room today, all added together. Why can't we look after the people? That's what you want to do. The people need that clock. They look to those clocks when they're going in the district. It isn't the parishioners, like you say. It is the people that are travelling through and the people that are travelling round. And I think Judith Roberts was the first one to hand up, and I should have spoken. She should have spoken before me, but never mind. We keep it as it is. Let's go back to paying for clocks. Never mind paying half. That's nothing. Austerity, I've never seen any austerity. I don't know what it is. So let's carry on.
Who's next,
I shall
please?
now ask, thanks for that, Councillor Paul Dixon. I shall now Councillor Roberts. So, I'm sorry I didn't see your hand up first, Councillor Roberts.
Hello. Can you
Hello.
hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, as Councillor Dixon says, I was the first one to put my hand up. So somebody wants to be watching this screen, otherwise it's all going to pot. But I fully agree with what Councillor Poxon says, because the church clocks were there before people could afford to buy a watch for the hand. And they used to rely on that, on the church clocks and the time that it told as to whether or not they turned up for work on the right time. So it's a benefit to the whole of the community, far and wide, is a church clock. And we're not supposedly to be funding schools, but we're managing to do it on a 137. So why can't we do the church on the same hop?
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you'd finished, Councillor Roberts, so we haven't heard that last comment.
Why do you keep muting me when I
thought you'd finished, sorry.
No, I hadn't. No, I said I fully, wholeheartedly support Councillor Poxon when he says that we should support the church clocks. We've always done it, as far as I can remember, from being on the parish council. We've always supported the maintenance of the church clocks. Never mind what this damned YLCA or this NALC says. They're not all right all the time. I'm not surprised people are getting themselves upset and cross over it.
Is that the end of what you've got to say, Councillor?
That's the end of what I've got to say,
okay. Yeah. Who's next, Councillor Pogson? Hang on, sorry.
Sorry about that. I started coughing and choking, so I wanted to mute myself.
I thought you were swearing at me while you were silent.
No, I wasn't swearing at you. I just couldn't. I just was asking you to unmute me. Thank you, Councillor Roberts. I've got Councillor Trevor Bellamy.
Yes, I'm on now, I believe. I just want to wholeheartedly support Councillor Poxon's proposal, and if that was a proposal and it needs a seconder, I would certainly be happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, I've got Councillor
Tom Dixon.
Councillor Tom Dixon.
Sorry, Tom.
Yeah, originally I didn't have my hand raised to speak. I had my hand raised to second Councillor Pogson. But
okay.
Having listened to the other contributions and thought a bit further about this, just because the parish council has always funded something doesn't mean it has to continue funding something. Times change and things happen, and we have to move on sometimes. I'm not saying we should do in this instance. I like clocks. They are a tradition. I don't want to see clocks go away, public clocks. Although people don't really use clocks anymore to find their way around or find out what time it is. People have got phones or got watches on a lot of the time. So people don't really need...
Oh, okay, sorry. I hadn't seen that. I'll let you in. Yeah.
Right. So the need for public clocks is probably a lot less than it would have been 100 or so years ago. The need for public, I just think they're a nice thing to have around and to look up and see what time it is. I think they're a nice thing to have around. But I've done a bit of research as well based on what Councillor Sheard said. Well, research, a quick Google. And apparently the Church of England has got a large endowment of 8.9 billion, which generates 1 billion a year in income. Right, my sources may not be very good on this, but it does appear that the Church of England does have a lot of money that it could use itself to look after the clocks. I think if we were to give them half the money, like was suggested by somebody, I wouldn't be against that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dixon. I've got Councillor Carrier.
Sorry. Okay.
I'm partly going to repeat what some people have said, but just because we've always done something doesn't mean we should carry on. But the other thing to note is the clerk's obviously gone to some effort to try and find out what the rules are, and the rules that we're being advised is we can't do it. So I don't think we can tonight vote to overrule the advice on what the rules are. I think the best we could do is agree to have a review of it. My view on this, I do think they've got heritage value. I don't think they've got much value at all as a timekeeping device in the modern world. I can't think I've ever used a clock in all of my life. And I'm 55 now, and I grew up in a town that had many sort of church clocks on that. I can't remember ever looking at one, other than on Remembrance Sunday and other things. It may also be that the church actually wants to decommission its clock, and churches have got all sorts of things in many cases they'd rather not have because the maintenance of them is quite expensive. So what I would say is, at best, we can't make a decision. But I think we could review it, and we could review what clocks are out there, what the real maintenance costs are, and see how that could be funded. It may be some churches need more money, some churches need less. Maybe some don't need any. But to just have a sort of, we always give this amount because we always have done, doesn't seem to be a sensible way to use public funds. So I would suggest there's a review of it, both a review in terms of need, but also a review about the legality of doing it in the first place. And I don't think we can make a decision to do anything more than go away and review it.
Can I just interject there, Councillor Carey? We have an ongoing maintenance cost, which we've done for various years and what have you, that we pay for the upkeep and regular maintenance of the clock. So we actually do know how much we've spent, you know, over the time. It's one contractor that we use, and we know sort of going past exactly what that fee actually has been. I'm sorry I don't have those figures on me at the moment, but yeah. But
well, I know can tell you.
Yeah, thank you, Liz.
Do you want me to tell you?
I would much appreciate it, and then we can move this conversation on.
It's about £700 a year for the contract to service the clocks every year, but then we quite often pay something like £200 for any particular clock to be mended. So I'd say it's probably £1,000 a year.
Okay, thank you for that, Liz. I've got Councillor Councillor Dalton.
Thank you, Michael. Firstly, sorry, Councillor Pogson, I will be fully supporting your proposal that you put at the start of this to ensure that the council continues doing what it's always done, which is ensuring that organising the cost and the maintenance of the church clocks in the Holme Valley, which it's done since the late 1800s, will continue. Firstly, I'm really disappointed that people are referring to these as this isn't the church's property. I don't know when our clocks got given to the church, and it's certainly not for members of this council to start giving property to the church. Have we got some kind of evidence to say that the church have claimed ownership of these clocks, which have always been the people's clocks, housed in churches? Does nobody understand the history of the clocks that have been installed in churches in the Holme Valley by the people of the Holme Valley, which the church consented to because they were the best places to put clocks, funnily enough, the places with high towers where people could see them. But these clocks are not the church's clocks, they're the people's clocks. And the churches granted the people permission to put the clocks in the church towers. This isn't a church maintaining church property. That whole idea of this wrecking of local heritage by removing something that works. We actually maintain our clocks, church clocks, well, and we do a good job of it. And what does this council want to do? Cause a problem. These clocks aren't disappearing. They will either go into disrepair and become ugly, or we'll maintain them and keep them in good working order and maintain our heritage. But to suggest that you're using some legal mechanism to remove what we should be doing, maintaining the church clocks, stop doing that, because evidently the clocks are now owned by the church. I don't think so. I'll be supporting Councillor Pogson's proposal.
Okay, I've got Councillor East.
Hello, yes. I support the parish council continuing to accept applications from churches for funding of clocks or whatever, and that obviously we just decide them on their merits individually. So I'd kind of support carrying on, really.
Okay, thank you. I've seen you, Councillor Colling, but I've got Councillor Greaves next.
Hi. I don't think the actually detailed legal briefing note explaining exactly what the position is has been shared with members. Whilst the parish council has supported the maintenance of church clocks in the past, and I've been happy to support that, I was unaware that there'd been significant issues around it for some years. I think there's a great benefit from funding the clocks, but the law is absolutely crystal clear on this. The church commissioners have responded to that. Michael, share if you want to share the church commissioners' response, share it, because in their final paragraph they state that they would welcome clarification from Department of Communities and Local Government that this is a fundable area. So NALC, YLCA, local government have stated categorically that the general powers under Section 137 do not apply where there's a specific statutory prohibition. So there's an Act of Parliament from 1890, something like that, that specifically prohibits it. That is still good law. So it's the power to fund clocks falls into two groups: church clocks, public clocks. So clocks that are on churches are church clocks. It's not permitted. And whilst we've had a summary of what YLCA's advice is, the actual full advice note and the counter note from the church commissioners arguing contrary, but acknowledging actually that the interpretation of the law is against them, would be helpful before we make, we might have unlawfully funded it in the past, but that was well intentioned. We're now in a situation where we've been given clear guidance that it is unlawful to continue funding them. I would hope, and this isn't just Holme Valley, this is every single town and parish council in the country. I would hope that with things coming to a head, there would be some clarification one way or another. There hasn't been yet. and the original case arose in 2012. So we are waiting for something. Just on the final point, I agree the Church of England is rolling in cash, but that is not the same as saying your local churches are rolling in cash. It tends to work the other way around. So if we were given the power to fund it, I would support that. But we do not have the legal power to do it. Chair, I would ask if there's any doubt on this at all, I would ask that the full response from YLCA and the related response from the Church Commissioners is shared with all members so they can see the full legal argument. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Graves. I've got Councillor Colling.
I think if there is any question of it being illegal, we need to defer. Genuinely illegal, as Charles says it is. And I think we need more information. But just on a point of information about the church that he touched on, the Church of England may be rolling in money. Individual churches are hard up. I know, for instance, that Honley Church gets nothing from Wakefield Diocese and has to raise the salary of the vicar itself. It gets nothing from the Church of England, let alone, I mean, they've just had to raise the money to preserve and mend and make good their rather rare organ. So you can't assume, as Charles has said, you can't assume that individual churches have money.
Richard stuck his hand up. I think he wants to contribute something to it. So I've left Richard to the end for his contribution, and then I propose to hand back to cede the chair to Councillor Hogley before we move to a vote, or move to go anywhere with this, if that's okay with everybody.
Okay, just to clarify, Councillor Bogson, because I've only heard half of the discussion, it would be helpful if you could continue this item till the start of the next item because of internet failures at my end.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hogley. So, Richard, you were sticking your hand up at one point. No?
Rich McGill.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know. I was just indicating to the clerk that Councillor Hogley had returned to the screen.
Okay, thank you.
She couldn't see me, unfortunately.
So,
back in your box.
So I shall now try and summarise where we have. I proposed that we should go back and continue to fund the maintenance, routine maintenance, and the upkeep of the churches in the Holme Valley, as what we did previously to the decision and what have you. A lot of people spoke about that and what have you. Someone put forward that we maybe should fund half of that. I think that was an amendment put forward by somebody. And then we also got forward that we should defer making a decision until the legal clarification around this is actually cleared up. So those are the three issues that we've taken about. Am I okay if I take these? So mine will be the first proposal, and then we would have an amendment to pay half, and then the other amendment is to postpone, which is Charles Greaves. Is that right, Charles?
Do you want to put your thumb up, Charles, if that's right? Yeah, he's saying yeah.
Okay, well, would you like to clarify exactly what you did propose?
Yeah, I would propose that the full advice note from NALC and from the Church Commissioners is shared with all members.
Okay, and then a decision postponed until all members have read both that. I would also advise that the advice from the House of Parliament briefing note as well be shared.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah. So that's the proposal by Charles Greaves. Have we anyone who would second that proposal, that amendment to the proposal? Yes, we've got a fair few people there. So we shall vote on that amendment. All those in favour? I think that's pretty much carried with the looks of that.
That's 12. Yeah, that's 12.
Okay, so we're postponing making a decision on this until everyone's seen the relevant papers that have been circulated. So I propose, is that okay to be carried out before next full council meeting?
Possibly. I'm not I'm not promising. I've spent a lot of time on it and it's not at the top of my agenda. but I will do what I can. And if you would send me,
I'll send you an email with a link to
yeah,
both those
that would help.
documents
Thank
I'm
you.
aware of.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I shall now cede the chair to Councillor Hogley. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Pogson. Apologies all, don't know why the internet's unstable. My home today, slightly unexpected. Anyway, right, moving on to 130, which is funding to schools. So this is just clarifying that it is possible for us to give grants to schools under section 137 of the 1972 Local Government Act. So that's just to note, as far as I can see.
Yeah, that's a reversal, isn't it, Councillor Hogley, of the previous advice from me that we couldn't give money to schools. And it's just confusing the way they say what is allowed. There's nothing in law that says you could give money to schools, but you can use 137, and it's totally different to the church issue.
Okay, so that's just a note when we're considering giving grants in any of our committees. Okay, so moving on to new policies. We've got a series of policies which are recommended that we add to our burgeoning list of them, which are based on standard formats. We've got the email policy, the form for application for dispensation, recruitment and selection policy, and then actually the training policy. I've discussed this with the clerk and suggested that it goes back to staffing committee because there's quite a few sections that need to be considered and made relevant to our specifics of our council. So I'm going to propose that I'm going to take them each in turn, but I propose that we adopt the Parish Council email policy. All those in favour, please? Okay, that's majority, thank you. Propose that we adopt the form for application for dispensations. Fairly standard form, that one. Yeah, okay, all those in favour, thank you. I propose we adopt the recruitment and selection policy. All those in favour, please? Okay, yeah, that's a majority, thank you. As I say, I've proposed training policy is reviewed at staffing before returning to full council, so it can be made more relevant to our parish council. There's quite a few sections in brackets that could do with improving. So is everyone happy with that course of action? Goes back to staffing committee? Yeah, okay, brilliant, thank you. And then the last two are related to grants forms, and these are referred from the Finance and Management Committee. So there's the new grant form. Can I ask for approval for everyone for the new grant form, please? All those in favour? Okay, I can see a majority. Thank you. It's carried. And then the new grants application criteria. So this again has gone through Finance and Management and was just trying to make it all clearer. I've got Councillor Pogson waving feverishly at me. So Liz, if you could unmute him, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a bit of clarification really regarding this matter in the guidance, and just so I can just clarify that my understanding is what I believe it to be. It says applications for support for a community service or activity. This is I2.1. Further action should be support a specific identifiable element of the service or activity and something tangible rather than towards the general running costs. That's a bit vague. So does that mean we can't support a scheme in itself, but we can support something that a scheme does? Does that make any sense?
I think you need to clarify that you're talking about the employment of staff and salaries and wages.
I'll come across that. That's item 3.1 under capital expenditure. So what I'm getting at is, could we, something that was a service, a community service or activity, we can fund wages. That's something that falls underneath that thing, because there's nothing to stop us doing that. Other than this, rather than general running costs.
Yeah, I believe that to be true for a service, yeah.
Yeah, we believe that to be true for a service. So for instance, if someone wanted to run a youth service and pay for a member of staff for that and come to the council for funding out of the youth budget, we could fund towards a member of staff out of this service activity, which is as opposed to item 3.1 where staffing costs, we generally don't pay for staffing costs towards a capital expenditure or a project. So if someone's building a new extension to a building, we wouldn't pay for the staffing costs of a project manager to manage that building, or a planning agent, or someone to manage that, the staffing element of that. Am I right in what I'm saying there?
That's the understanding that we have, on the basis that a service, things like the minibuses, for example, are an example of where we're contributing to a service, which obviously includes the wages of the bus drivers. But clearly, because it's talking about a specific identifiable elements, that would be the buses that operate within our valley. And yeah, obviously we make the payment just generally to Metro. So that's how I read that line. And as you say, for capital expenditure or projects, we're saying we wouldn't pay for staff, but there's no reason in delivery of a service that couldn't cover some staffing costs. That's how
Thank you.
That's my interpretation of it.
That's how I understand it. Thank you.
Councillor Roberts.
Oh, sorry, half asleep.
I believe, if I can remember rightly, we have never ever funded wages, because it does open up a great minefield, does that, if we start funding wages as well.
Okay, Councillor Roberts, I'll pass to Councillor Tom Dixon. What's comment on that?
I've always found this a bit of a funny one, because sometimes we fund towards like a building project, like to do like with the roof, and like fixing repairs to the roof, and we're not paying. We are not paying for wages. We are paying for the repairs to the roof. But the repairs to the roof of something, or the building of something, they're gonna have to pay somebody's wages to do these things. So indirectly, we are paying for the wages. So, like, I think we kind of are paying for wages at the moment. I don't see any problem with what Councillor Pogson suggested of, like, if we have to pay some money towards like a youth worker or towards a project, because like if they word it slightly differently, like if they worded it as saying, oh, pay some money towards a youth project, you are in fact paying the wages, but you're just wording it differently.
Okay, I think it's the clarity of the meaning of service. Right, Councillor Paul Dixon.
I think Tom's got it totally wrong there. The meaning of the word paying wages is for paying staff. This, when you've got a contractor in to do a job, you price the job, and that's the cost of the job. When you've got somebody who is having a wage for doing an operation, i.e. being a group leader or a youth leader or something like that, that is no way that we're paying their wages to keep that place open. That is totally wrong.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Carey. Liz, Councillor Carey, please.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Chair. As somebody who used to manage various grant schemes for the council, this was always a problem. And I think there's a difference between a salaried wage where you've got a regular amount of money going out and one-off costs, because you might have a project where somebody wants to bring in an artist, or there might be expenses that are associated with volunteers. But to be honest, I think in terms of the parish, we just need to decide, are we prepared to consider cash going to individuals as part of it? If it's a capital programme, then I think that capital money should go on the capital project, which could include builders' costs, but because at the end of the day, you're left with a capital thing. Anything that any other applications, and I think it's legitimate for our general grant scheme to include costs, because there may be legitimate costs of workers. Some of those may be regular staff, some of them may be one-off staff, some of them may be consultants, other types of people. But I think to leave it in just gives you that flexibility. Every grant is considered on its merit. Every applicant has to make a case for what they're asking for money for, and we've got the choice to decide anyway. So I don't think it's really a problem to leave it in there. But what we have to be aware of, we as a small organisation with the turnover we've got, we're not in a very good position to fund people's ongoing staffing costs. To do it as a one-off for start-up projects, I think we can and should consider that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Carey. Final comment from you, Councillor Roberts, before we move to a vote.
Well, if we do get an application where there are costs for workmen or whatever, more often than not, we don't actually pay the whole grant out, the whole amount that they're wanting. It's only a section of it that we'll pay, because there will be some enormous funding have to go out if we were paying for the whole lot. So if there was a section of it that was, if it just said labour, which would be what you would pay out for somebody to do it, then we would say that we would fund the items but not the labour.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Roberts.
If we start funding all that lot out, then we need a preceptors nearly bigger than Kirklees.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Roberts. Right, so do we, I think we have a proposal to adopt the grant criteria as is, but do we have any counter proposals to that then? Councillor Dalton, you've got your hand up. Liz?
Yeah, no, I don't have a counter proposal. I do want to note that I haven't received the email policy in the bundle of paperwork that I've been sent, so I don't have a copy of the email policy. If the clerk or the deputy clerk could email me a copy of the email policy, please, that would be great. Secondly, the meeting's exceeded 2 hours in length now. The standing orders of the council demand that the business is undertaken within 2 hours. Could we draw this meeting to a close and defer all items to another time, please?
We'll consider that, Councillor Dalton. We should bear in mind the 2 hours does not include the public open session. So I calculate we have about 12 minutes to bring the meeting to a close, because our public open session lasted till 7:20. So can we move to vote then? I propose we adopt the criteria for the grant applications. All those in favour, please.
What are we funding? What are we going to?
Leaving the text as is.
Right. Okay.
Okay. All those in favour, please. Okay.
But the text has got to be that we're not funding wages.
Well, the text is as it is.
Right.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Okay. Next item 132, this is to consider the Council's view on a further survey from NAUC to be forwarded to the Committee for Standards in Public Life. Councillor Davies?
Sorry,
you had your hand up.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I would say certainly from my perspective, I think we should contribute to this. It's a very important area that's being discussed, right across the country. I think it's key in terms of how we work with our residents, with our electorate, to ensure that we are doing what we can in terms of elected members, following the right code of conduct and acting in the right manner. So I think this is very important. There's just very quickly, there is a discussion that is going on, it's been going on for some time, about whether in England there should be a power to suspend. That power does exist in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So part of this in terms of sanctions is also being discussed at NAUC level, LGA, and at this committee stage. And the actual Committee on Standards in Public Life has actually proposed to the government that there should be a power of suspension within England. But of course, at the moment with COVID, everything is on sort of back burner, and that does need legislation. So I think it is a very important area that we should contribute to.
Okay, do you have a proposal, Councillor Davies, of how we should submit our responses, given that it needs to be in advance of the next full council meeting? Sorry, Liz, could you unmute him again, please?
I would suggest that if possible, that we select a small group to represent the council and to come up with a view so that we can feed that back. If we could do that tonight, that would be great.
Okay, Councillor Trevor Bellamy. Liz, could you unmute him, please?
We're on. Thank you very much. With regard to this one, I believe I was hearing about this one, and it was being discussed last year, in actual fact, and it was a cross-party agreement, if I remember rightly, and it's probably above 12 months since it was initially being talked about. So it's now come back on the table, and so be it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bellamy. I think the issue here is we need to give a response by the 4th of December. So an option is whether we. I'm just looking at what the other committees. When do we have our next staffing committee, Liz?
January.
January. Right. Okay, that doesn't help me.
Next council's 14th of December, so that's after.
Right. Okay, so that's after the NAT response. Okay, Councillor Dalton.
Yeah, I would propose that each councillor who wishes to contribute to this process does so as an individual councillor, and that the council does not put some kind of group together to determine what the council might think on, what is it, ethical conduct or whatever. I mean, I'd be very... I wouldn't want to put my name to any group from this council that included members of the anti-Semite Labour Party. When it came to standards in public life, that would be something that I'd be
Councillor
far
Dalton,
from
please be
comfortable
mindful of your language when
with. Oh, I'm very
addressing
mindful
council.
of my language, Madam Chairman. Very mindful.
Right, thank you. Okay, Councillor Sheard. Can we just
hang on a minute?
Yeah. I really take exception to that, Councillor Dalton. Because I support the rights of Palestinian people does not make me, as a member of the Labour Party, anti-Semite, and I will not have you speak to me like that.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Councillor Sheard. I've seen your hand, Councillor Dalton, but we're not going to have a lengthy debate. I've asked everyone to moderate their language and be mindful of any offence that may be inadvertently or advertently caused, and I don't want to continue that discussion. Now, in terms of progressing a reply, I think lots of people have different views. Can I ask that anyone who wishes to submit their views, they send them all to, I can collate everybody's views and send it as a collated view, which doesn't necessarily mean it reflects a unanimous view one way or the other, but it reflects all the views of councillors who wish to contribute. And Councillor Dalton, I'd clarify that would reflect people's differences of opinion, because I think it's something which people will have strong opinions in either way. So I will request that people make their submissions to me by a week before the deadline. So whatever week before the 4th of December is, Liz can clarify what that is. It'll be about the 27th of November or something like that. And then I'll collate a response, which is, as I say, individual responses from councillors. Okay, moving on, conscious of shortage of time.
Can I ask you actually do anything about it?
Sorry, Councillor Roberts, I only caught the second part of the question.
Whatever anybody puts forward to you with regards to whatever there is, what will you do anything about it, or will it just be, left shelved?
No, I will collate all the comments that I receive and submit them to NALC. and I'm quite happy for that, to have comments that disagree with each other, because I think it's important that councillors all have individual says if they wish to do so. Okay, conscious of time, let's move on to the next item, which is item 133, which consider the progress on the review of the council governance by Calderdale Council. I think this is just to note, because all the issues that have been raised through this governance review that we went through last year have now been addressed. So I suggest we just note that. And then there's another quick one to note, or sorry, to approve. Oh, apologies. So there is an approve at the end. So can I propose that we approve the conclusion to the review from Calderdale Council, and it's all been included in what we now all do. Okay, thank you. Now on to item 134, which is council's asked to approve that the council representatives on the YLCA should be the present and past chairman, not Councillor Hall and Councillor Trevor Bellamy, as decided at the annual meeting. So this is just so that it reflects well, the current chairman and the past chairman. It's just so we sort of stay in sync with the chair and past chair each time. So can I ask to approve that, please? All those in favour? Yeah, okay, I can see a majority, thank you. Past chairman's duals. This is the issue. We have deferred this before, but we'll see if we can deal with this now. This is an issue of the fact we've run out of past chairman's duals. The previous tradition, as I understand it, is that the retiring chairman receives a badge or dual, and there's a cost here for how much it costs to get new duals. Now, there is an option as to whether we wish to continue with the purchase of the jewels, and there's a choice between a silver model or a metallic model, and obviously the difference in price is presented there, or whether the council wishes to consider an alternative, which the thought I had was the community champions style trophies are quite a pleasing way to mark someone's year as chair, but I appreciate that's slightly different from the traditional badge. Now, before we discuss this substantively, I just want to get a feel of whether people feel we should stick with the existing duals, or whether we want to have a discussion at a future date about alternatives that could be considered. Councillor Hall. Liz, could you?
I've clicked. You need to. That's it. You were unmuted then, Di. Whatever you did, that's it. Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah, just for reference, I had no idea that these jewels cost so much. Have we got any record of how much past jewels have cost? This just seems a phenomenal amount.
They actually cost more before. They've gone down slightly.
So each jewel costs approximately how much?
I think they're about £300 in the past.
Right. That means that our past chairman, including myself, who've got a couple, really ought to up our insurance then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, there's Councillor Carey and Councillor Tom Dixon.
Oh, hang on, who are we going first for?
Councillor Carey.
Yeah, sorry, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I do think this, particularly with the cost, it's something which I think should be reviewed. I also think it's a fairly personal thing. I can't imagine I would ever want a jewel or use a jewel. I don't think I'd even ever put anything on a mantelpiece if it was a lower value commemoration item. But I also respect that other people may have a very different view on it. And I think in some ways we need to, for this year at least, offer the outgoing chair what everybody else has had, if he wants it, and if he doesn't want it. But then I think we need to review what we do going forward. But I don't think at the prices quoted, it just seems a phenomenal amount of money for something that will rarely get worn, and most people, if we're honest, wouldn't know the significance of.
Okay, can I suggest, in light of what Councillor Carey said, and in light of our running out of time, that we defer this to the next full council, and in the interim I'll have a discussion with Councillor Bellamy about whether he wishes to receive a dual, similar to what I can see Councillor Tom Dixon just waved at his camera. And then I think Councillor Carey is quite right, there's a tradition of what the previous chairman had, and then looking ahead as to what future past chairman would receive. So we'll put it on the next full council agenda, and I will speak to Councillor Trevor Bellamy about how he'd like to proceed, which is perfectly within his entitlement to have what was before, subject to us agreeing it.
He's waving, Rachel.
Yeah, Councillor Trevor Bellamy, just briefly. Need to unmute.
He is. Oh, he did. Can you try again, Councillor Bellamy?
We're up. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm just relating back a few weeks to when we attended the funeral of a past chairman of our council, Rita Briggs. And a little bit prior to that, she'd had a break-in at a property and her jewel was stolen with other things from the property. Now, it was absolutely devastating to Rita, the fact that that jewel had gone, that she hadn't got one, to the point where we did actually replace it for her. But it just pointed out to me how very important that has been to certain members of our council.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. That's a very good point. Okay, so we'll include it on our next full council agenda, and as I say, I'll talk to Councillor Trevor Bellamy in the interim. Right, just to bring the meeting to an end with the final. There are two things to note. 136, which is thanks from Home Firth Arts Festival. So I think that's just a note, everybody. Okay, noted. And the next one is the progress being made with River Home Connections on development of Thongsbridge Wild Space, which is good news. There's some links on there if anyone wants to find out more, but basically they're progressing very well with their fundraising.
They pretty much, I think they've actually succeeded now.
I think they've exceeded it now, haven't they?
Yeah.
So, and we gave them a grant towards that. Then 138 is to note the report on the current position for the proposed Home Firth Town Centre Access Plan. So obviously that's information just to note and be aware of, and the diagram that goes with it. And we'll have to sort of watch progress in that space.
Okay.
I can see Councillor Paul Dixon waving feverishly at me. Could you say, put him on so he can speak, Liz, please?
Okay, you're on. You're on, Councillor Dixon, I think. Oh, he's not.
One thing to say, Rachel, with this, as far as I'm concerned, it's all going out of the window now. We're going to lose a car park. We're going to lose a town centre hall. We're losing at the end of this month the Edinburgh Wool Shop. It's going into receivership. If they were to flatten that and use that part for the new roundabout, it would be far better than to lose the market hall and the car park that we've got already. And if we made it into a roundabout, incorporating that as part of it, it's a large section of building. If Carcleys Council are going to do all that other vandalism before, to buy this and take that down, which is an obnoxious building, and then flatten that, and then make the roadway, I think we've got the answer to our problems.
Okay, thank you for that.
Can we go back to Carcleys and tell them this?
Well, I think we can. Can I suggest we feed back to them? We'd be interested to know whether any changes have happened as a result of perhaps their awareness of changes within the town centre. We want reassurance that this is the plan that will still go ahead. Okay, so Councillor Tom Dixon.
Where's he gone? Where's he gone? Where's he gone? Here he is. Okay.
We invite the person to Kirkley to the next planning committee meeting where we can like put any questions to them.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good good suggestion. We had invited them to attend this full council meeting, I believe, but they sent this update.
He's on leave. He's on leave.
Okay. Well, in which case, can I suggest that we do invite the representatives to speak to the next planning committee, please?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything to add at this stage, so I'm going to bring the meeting to a close, to be honest, because I don't think there's we could have a great discussion about the town centre access plan, but we haven't got the time. So Chairman's report, I'll defer that to the next one. Thank you. So thank you very much all for attending. Apologies we've slightly overrun. Thank you all for your contribution, and apologies that my internet was temperamental as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Bye.